Good. All right. Welcome everybody to another FPVFC Town Hall. If there's no technical difficulties tonight, it will be amazing. Dan, who normally manages our stream, is on a well-deserved vacation, so I gave myself a crash course in OBS today, so we'll see what happens. So, good times. I've got several news articles tonight for us, and we've got some new interesting things happening with the FCC. So we'll kind of cover that, and then Dave's got some stuff we want to cover on some other topics here. So give me a second to get my screen shared, and we'll see how many windows I can feasibly have open on my computer. So let's see here. You'll have to give me 2 seconds to make sure we're good. Let's see.
It's not showing on the live stream.
Yeah, I'm working on that. Let me see here if I can sort this out. Let's see. Pictures disabled. I apologize, guys. Okay. Bring the call back here. There we go. Okay. Show my screen anyway. So I think we should be good to go. Okay. All right. So first up, we have Amazon has broken from the commercial industry on safety. Commercial drone industry. So Amazon's Prime Air drone delivery business has withdrawn from arguably the country's largest and most influential drone advocacy group over a fundamental and irreconcilable disagreement on safety, it wrote in a letter viewed by Flying. First reported by Reuters, the letter marks Prime Air's formal departure from the Commercial Drone Alliance due to clashing perspective on the FAA's consequential Part 108 proposal, which contains provisions for beyond visual line of sight operations. The proposal generated thousands of comments, many criticizing the FAA for going too far, and some for not going far enough. The CDA largely falls in the latter bucket. After extensive dialogue, it is clear that the CDA's position on the most consequential safety questions facing the commercial drone industry are incompatible with Prime Air's core safety tenets, read the letter from Mac McCardle, Prime Air's Director of Global Regulatory Infrastructure and Expansion, who resigned from the CDA board.
Josh, I don't think it's showing on the live stream anymore. It just shows a black box and doesn't show the pictures or the videos. Oh, there we go. Now it's showing again.
Okay, so let me see if I can sort this out here. Oh, gosh. All right. Alex, are we good?
Yes.
Okay.
I see video now.
All right.
And it went away.
Okay. I'm going to try and have everything open here. I apologize, guys. This is a learning experience for me. Okay. I think are we good now, Alex?
Yes. Video is good.
All right, cool. Thank you. Let's see. In a statement Saturday, the CDA assured that it is fully committed to the safety of the national airspace system and integrating drones safely and securely. The drone industry must meet a high bar for safety, and our members do, it wrote. Amazon's exodus created a divide between Prime Air and competitors Zipline, DEXA, and Alphabet's Wings, all CDA members. The organization also represents military and public safety uncrewed aircraft system developers such as Skydio, Brink Drones, and Merlin Labs, as well as several state utility providers and mobility projects like the Northeast UAS Aerospace Integration Research, aka New Air. Prime Air wrote that the safe integration of drones is the company's highest priority and argued the CDA is operating with a narrow set of commercial priorities. The disagreement centers on a provision that would require drones to equip technology that helps them detect and avoid crewed aircraft. Part 108 would expand BV loss operations, meaning more flights without human eyes directly on the drone. To prevent collisions, the FAA proposed that Part 108 UAS have DAA capabilities that extend to non-cooperative aircraft, those not broadcasting location, speed, and other data using ADS-B out or some other form of electronic conspicuity when flying in Class B or C airspace over densely populated areas. The agency alternatively considered an ADS-B out mandate for all crewed aircraft flying below 500 feet, but it determined that cost and reliability concerns made it impractical. In February, the House rejected a bill that would have mandated universal ADS-B option in the wake of the fatal 2025 collision over the Potomac River between a commercial passenger jet and U.S. Army helicopter, which was not broadcasting its location at the time of impact. The NTSB sharply criticized the move, which said it ignored its recommendations. The CDA similarly supports an ADS-B requirement for crewed operations below 500 feet, making non-cooperative DAA systems moot. Prime Air views that as a partial solution. The risk of a drone collision with a crewed aircraft is not theoretical, McCardle wrote. It is a foreseeable consequence of relying on a single layer of electronic detection in an airspace system that has always demanded redundancy. Prime Air agreed with the FAA that Part 108 must contain requirements that mandate drone technologies capable of detecting non-cooperative crewed aircraft. It cited 2 incidents during which the DAA system avoided collision with crewed aircraft that were not broadcasting their position, despite being required to in one of the cases. Without that intervention, the company said there could have been a catastrophic safety consequence, including a loss of life. The CDA last year made its position clear in comments on the FAA's proposal, which said Saturday represents the consensus position of the commercial drone community. The group strongly recommends removing the non-cooperative DAA requirement for a few reasons. One is cost. CDA members estimated that the installation of radar systems to meet the provision could cost them anywhere from $1,000 to $30,000 per square mile of coverage. It argued that equipping crewed aircraft with ADS-B or other EC systems or electronic conspicuity systems would be cheaper. Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association strongly disagreed. It even went a step further, arguing that drones should have ADS-B in capabilities. To require general aircraft to equip with conspicuity technology, which may or may not be reliable enough to serve as a standalone deconfliction mechanism, simply because DAA capabilities for drones are too expensive, too heavy, or too power-intensive is stunningly inadequate and again unsafe, AOPA wrote. AOPA's other contention was that ADS-B systems are unreliable at low altitude, as supported by the Transportation Department, which per a recent Government Accountability Office report warned in December that the technology was not designed to accommodate the sheer number of drones entering the airspace, leading to potential signal issues. Amazon's own DAA is not perfect. In February, one of its drones crashed into an apartment building in Texas, months after another clipped an internet cable. AOPA has specifically used Prime Air's DAA as evidence of the technology's immaturity, citing a 2025 incident in which 2 drones struck the same crane in Arizona.
Sorry.
No, it's kind of funny. The fact that 2 drones crashed within minutes of each other into the same obstacle would seem to indicate that a systematic problem exists and that it must be examined and addressed. The CDA told a different story. In its statement on Saturday, the group said that its members have conducted millions of safe UAS operations to date using current systems, arguing that a prescriptive requirement for non-cooperative DAA is simply not necessary. Amazon accused it of cutting corners. Amazon Prime Air's operational experience demonstrates the opposite. Non-cooperative detect and avoid technologies are not only achievable, they are the pathway to the high levels of safety that the national airspace demands and that the public deserves. So, yeah, interesting take on both sides of that story. Dave, what do you think?
I think this is just amazing that that they would do this, that Amazon would take this position. We line up almost always on the 180 degrees out with respect to CDA. They are absolutely focused on commercial. They have no interest in pushing, helping, or doing anything beneficial for recreational. But these are some really smart people. Look at the who's who of who this is in the drone industry on the commercial side. They have talent within their organization from top to bottom, including their managing director. And folks from the FAA and technical people and lobbyists, and they're a 501c6. So this is a top shelf governmental lobbying organization or a trade association in my estimation. So to abandon or to to me, Amazon could more easily have just said, well, we disagree on this one point. We're gonna continue our push, but we support CDA and all other avenues. I mean, to distance themselves from CDA, to me is this is a surprise. Plus, when we also can comment that one of the things they're talking about is that you remember that the FAA reopened comments on the BVLOS NPRM, and it was about this topic. And so we've got 20 plus pages on the initial comments. We think the whole BVLOS NPRM was not good, and the FAA should start over on many of the sections, including Part 146, which is unmanned traffic management. Things like the document talks about UAV to UAV, so deconfliction. And yet the design in the recommended legislation is that we're going to have a federation of companies that will handle individual unmanned traffic management, and they'll manage all of these handoffs. None of that is discussed in the NPRM. So I mean, it's just we could go on for hours and rehash this. So Amazon and CDA were in lockstep on the overall and the first BVLOS NPRM comments. So to then come to distance themselves publicly from CDA, this to me is not far-sighted on the part of Amazon. I'm surprised.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. So I guess we'll see where it takes them. I mean, detect and avoid is not perfect, and like they said, Amazon's struggled with it as well, and it's definitely going to be a interesting.
Yeah, our position on it was, and I'm grateful to the Remote ID ASTM working group that I sit on. Thanks to that group, we had a better informed set of comments, and essentially we think that the whole DAA recommendation should be either an enhanced remote ID, use what we've got today, much like CDA is saying, enhance it a bit so that it can be incorporated into manned aircraft, or defunction ADSB so that it can be incorporated in UAVs as an output device. In addition to the, already we have ADSB in, and ADSB is for those, that's the squawk capability of manned aircraft for controlled airspace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
I just think the funniest part about this is Amazon's the one saying calling out a safety issue when they have the most incidents. I wonder if it's something that they're trying to call it a safety issue to try to save face or anything, but that's what I find most funny.
Or do they have some technology that they feel, they've invested a lot in and they feel is industry leading, and if the rest of the industry players got behind it, they would have a leg up. It reminds me of back in ancient times in IBM where we had OS2. And for those of you who are about my age, and OS2 technically was a vastly superior operating system to Windows. There was just one problem. No one was using it. So, is it a situation where they're trying to get their technology to be pervasive? And is it better? I don't know. I honestly have no idea.
Yeah. All right. Next up, FAA launches Discover API, enabling drone remote ID enforcement and pilot phone number access. So the FAA recently launched the Discover API, a new capability that gives authorized public safety agencies access to additional information about drones operating in their area. When a drone broadcasts remote ID, law enforcement can now use the remote ID serial number to retrieve PII, or personal identifying information, about the operator through authorized channels. Previously, officers could see basic remote ID broadcast data such as the drone serial number, location, and flight path, but there was no simple way to quickly determine who the operator was or whether the flight was authorized. Through the Discover program, agencies can work with their local DHS Fusion Center to register for access to the tool and query additional FAA records tied to that remote ID broadcast. Zing is helping local law enforcement agencies navigate this process by assisting them in connecting with their regional DHS Fusion Center and registering for access to the Discover API, enabling officers to retrieve additional information about drone operations during incidents. When paired with Zscan Mini, officers can quickly capture the remote ID serial number of nearby drones, which can then be used to query the Discover system and retrieve FAA registration and authorization information. This new capability enables law enforcement to access drone pilot PII data, including the registered operator's name and phone number, determine whether the remote ID broadcast is tied to a registered aircraft in the FAA drone zone, check if the operator has an active LANCE authorization for control airspace, quickly access whether a drone flight appears authorized, compliant, or suspicious, support investigations by linking remote ID broadcasts to FAA registration records, and improve coordination between local law enforcement fusion centers and federal aviation systems. As remote ID adoption continues to grow, tools that connect drone detection in the field with FAA registration and authorization data will play an increasingly important role in helping responders understand what's happening in the airspace around them. Public safety agencies interested in equipping their teams with portable remote ID detection tools can learn more about Zscan Mini here. So, yeah, that's a lot more of your information going out there.
Yeah. So first, APIs. This is ironic to us because we pleaded with the FAA to please expose the API that is already there on their free application, but they absolutely refused. So to me, this is somewhat amusing, and Alex picked up on this as well, that they're making visible an API to local law enforcement. What is a puzzler is that, so that means that people are going to have to code to this. I mean, that's what they've offered local law enforcement. So the function is nothing new. This has been around and this was the intent, that law enforcement could contact the FAA and get the PII that was associated with remote ID. So this has been forever. So this is, however, this is making it much easier, and this corresponds with the Safer Skies Act, which was in the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, sections 8602 to 8606, which enables state and local law enforcement as well as tribal territory law enforcement to exercise or have delegated to them counter UAS, meaning that local law enforcement, once they get trained, and it's a significant investment in training, 3 weeks of training, that they can then take drones out of the sky. So it's probably a good idea that maybe local law enforcement might query who is flying the drone before they take it out of the sky.
Yeah,
that would that would be a good sequence of events, and not one that we've seen from federal law enforcement.
Yeah. It'll be definitely interesting to see how this technology gets used. There's definitely a little bit more enforcement happening lately, and I'll kind of cover that here in a second. So, 2025 enforcement report, drone pilots fined up to $36,770, certificates suspended and revoked. So, drone pilots are losing their certificates and being fined up to $36,770, and one pilot just had their certificate permanently revoked. We know this because the FAA just released its 2025 enforcement report. They fined 18 operations, suspended or revoked the licenses of 8 pilots, and announced a new enforcement policy that makes things even stricter. In this article, I'm going to break down every case, including what they did, what rules they broke, and what you can do to avoid being that person. Here's the big picture before we get into the specifics. The FAA levied fines against 18 operations for violations between 2023 and 2025, ranging from $1,771 to $36,770. Keeping in mind that the maximum penalty is $75,000 per violation. And there's a pattern you need to notice right away. In every one of these cases involving civil penalties, the pilot did not hold a Part 107 certificate and did not have their drone registered when they should have. These weren't licensed pilots making judgment calls. These were completely uncertified operators. Super Bowl, what is that? 57 TFR violation, the classic big event mistake. With that in mind, let's walk through the highlights of the cases from the smallest to the largest. First up is a classic big event obvious restriction scenario, and the FAA doesn't play around with these. The drone was operated near a State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, during the Super Bowl on February 12, 2023. The TFR classified the airspace as National Defense Airspace, and the pilot had no Part 107 certificate, no drone registration, and was flying in Class Delta airspace without ATC authorization. The fine came in at $14,790. The FAA puts TFRs in place well in advance. They're easy to find, and there's really no excuse for not checking. And if you think that's just a one-off, the next case is basically a checklist of mistakes. Flying over a festival crowd. This is an example of what happens when someone brings a drone into a packed crowd and ignores every rule that exists. A pilot flew a DJI Mavic 2 Pro over a crowd at Sunfest in West Palm Beach, Florida on May 5th, 2024. People were actually throwing ice at the drone. It ended up hitting a coconut tree, and the pilot had no Part 107 certificate, no registration, no remote ID. They were also flying in Class C airspace without ATC authorization and failed to maintain visual line of sight for the entire flight. The fine was $20,370. Make sure you're familiar with Part 107 rules regarding flying over people, what categorized aircraft are required, and why a musical festival crowd is an obvious no-go. Let's shift from crowds and events to a location that gets enforced aggressively every single time. It's a VIP airspace violation, and these are the kind of flights that get attention fast. A drone flew in restricted airspace near Mar-a-Lago on January 13th, 2025, classified at the time as National Defense Airspace under a NOTAM. The pilot had no Part 107, no registration, flew above 400 feet AGL, lost visual line of sight, and was in Class C airspace without ATC authorization. Fine of $20,371. By now you may have noticed a recurring theme. Drones were not registered when they were supposed to be. And this is actually an easy step. All you need to do is head over to the FAA Drone Zone website and follow the prompts. It's going to cost you $5, and it's good for 3 years. In our effort to make sure people actually take this step, we've been offering free registration stickers for years. That's through Pilot Institute, and that's where this article is coming from. Biggest fine, interfering with a wildfire emergency response. If we're wondering what the FAA considers the worst case scenario, it's this next one because it impacted real emergency operations. It's the biggest fine in the report for a reason. It didn't just break the rules, it actually stopped an emergency response. A pilot flew a drone in the vicinity of Soldier Delight Natural Environment Area in Baltimore County, Maryland on April 4th, 2023 during an active wildfire. The drone came within approximately 140 feet of a police helicopter and as a result, aerial wildfire suppression and emergency response were suspended for 30 to 40 minutes. Multiple agencies were involved: Baltimore County Fire Police, Maryland State Police, and the National Guard. The pilot had no Part 107 and no registration. The FAA also cited a very specific federal statute, 49 U.S. Code 46320, for knowingly and recklessly interfering with a wildfire response, which carries a separate penalty of up to $20,000 on top of the FAA fines. The total fines reached $36,770. Fines are one thing, but the FAA also went after licenses in 2025. 8 remote pilots faced suspension or revocation. A suspension is temporary. They usually range from 150 to 300 days. A revocation means you lose your certificate permanently. And here's what makes these cases different. Unlike the fine pilots we talked about earlier, these operators actually held a Part 107 certificate. They were trained, certified pilots who broke the rules they were supposed to know. So they go through a couple of these, but yeah, there's definitely a heavier push on enforcement. That's not to say, and from conversations with the FAA, that they're not still about education. However, there's certain things that they are going to pursue probably relatively aggressively. Dave, thoughts on this?
Yeah, and so as always, we're not telling people what to do. We're trying to inform you as to what's the temperature of the water, and we certainly are advocating compliance in pretty much all of these rules, with the exception of 6/4375 NOTAM, which is the ICE NOTAM. But other than that, we think it's a good idea to comply, and compliance is possible. Also, as referenced in the NFL infractions plural, one of the things that the FAA does that Josh talked about is they, you say, well, I'm operating under recreational rules. Okay, then they tick through all of the rules. If you are not compliant with any one of them, then 44809 or recreational is the recreational exception. That means you lose that exception if you're violating any of those rules and you default to Part 107. Oh, you don't have your Part 107? Oh, not flying without a 107 certificate. And then they start to walk through all of the infractions under Part 107. So this is a technique that has been part of the FAA's enforcement toolkit for several years. Now we anticipate that, one, it will have no flexibility or very little flexibility in mandatory penalties, and it will be enforced by a much broader set of law enforcement, in as much, thanks to the Safer Skies Act in the NDAA. So please take this seriously.
Let's see. So Mupshot says all were missing the $5 registration. So it seems like in a lot of these cases, yeah, a lot of them were missing the registrations.
Right. Recreational registration of $5 for 3 years. You can use the same registration number on your entire fleet. That's all flying recreational. The FAA wants us to register all of our recreational drones.
Yeah. Okay. So, and the one thing that we heard is that registration is no longer I guess the way they're putting it, a suggestion. They're not going to be so forgiving on that going forward. So. Right.
And part of registration is marking your UAV, your drone, with the registration number clearly visible. Has to be on the outside, cannot be inside a battery compartment.
Yeah. All right. So the FCC removes more drones from the covered list of banned products. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing. We understand, I think, at this point what the covered list is. But they did receive their first round of conditional approvals and updated the covered list accordingly to exempt devices which have been granted conditional approval. So originally in January, the Department of War made a determination that 3 types of UAS and UAS critical components do not pose security risks, and the FCC removed them from the cover list. Those 3 types are UAS and UAS critical components included on the Department of War's Blue UAS cleared list. Number 2, UAS and UAS critical components that qualify as domestic end products under the Buy American standard. And 3, UAS and UAS critical components that receive conditional approval. So 4 of the drones or drone systems that have been granted conditional approval are the Sci-Fly Aviation Q-12 uncrewed aircraft system, the Mobilicom Skyhopper Series M-band tactical data link, various controllers, and whatever ICE is, and then the OS3 security software, the Scout DI Scout 137 uncrewed aircraft system, and the Verge Inc. X1 uncrewed aircraft systems. So those 4 have been granted conditional approval under the FCC's.
This one remains a real puzzler, and so I applaud these companies for getting these conditional approvals. They obviously contacted the FCC, went through the exception process. They had to show their paperwork on their incorporation as a company. They also had to show their plans to how are they going to manufacture in the United States, what their current day supply chain is, and what's their to-go or eventual supply chain that shows that they will be manufacturing in the U.S., and then their plans for manufacture. So a lot of information provided to the FCC on this to get these conditional approvals. In addition, it's still we're still wondering how is the FCC going to manage this, in as much as all of this is a Department of Commerce territory. So we continue to say that this is overreach by the FCC. The Department of Commerce had an advanced NPRM that they were released in April of last year. We were talking to them about it, trying to inject some common sense into the whole discussion. They were, we thought, receptive. The Department of Commerce has pulled that NPRM, very unusual move, and they were capable using the harmonized tariff system, which checks products as they come into the country. And now the FCC is stating that there's a covered list, but there's still, in our estimation, no way that they have put in place a way to affect this or to enforce this. So it is the law of the land, but we'll see how this proceeds. When we've spoken to the FCC, we don't think this is reasonable. Part of this covered list is that they maintain that critical UAS components include motors and batteries, but the FCC's mission restricts them to communication services and devices. So still having some trouble with the FCC, but again, good for these companies to get the conditional approval.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we'll see more and more on that list. I mean, that would be a fantastic thing. All right, last, before we take a break from the articles, I do have a Drones for Good that we'll cover at the end, but I thought this was pretty cool. Green Berets learn to build, break, and fix drones at Fort Carson. So obviously faces blurred. These guys are special operations, but looks like we got some Lumineer products, maybe some TBS products there. So 3 weeks, soldering irons, tactical ranges, and high winds over Colorado. The 10th Special Forces Group just graduated its latest class of drone operators. These ones can also repair what they fly. From February 9th through February 27th, Green Berets from the 10th Special Forces Group Airborne completed an advanced drone course at Fort Carson, Colorado, as the U.S. Army reported. The course was led by instructors from the 4th Battalion, 10th Special Forces Group, and brought together Special Forces soldiers alongside one soldier from the 4th Infantry Division. The training ran across 3 demanding weeks, split between classroom instruction and live exercises on multiple tactical ranges. A high winds tore across the range through the training period, tumbleweeds, debris, and swirling gusts. The drones flew anyway, locked on course and unmoved by the conditions. That's the point of training in Colorado in February, rather than waiting for a calm spring afternoon. The curriculum covered soldering, soldering, assembly, programming, and piloting of small unmanned aerial systems. Graduates leave the course capable of independently maintaining and repairing their systems in austere environments, which means without a supply chain, without a tech support line, and without the option to wait. The mindset behind the training. The M4 comparison made by one of the course instructors from the 4th Battalion is the clearest possible articulation of where the Army wants drone proficiency to sit. If your M4 jams, you do not stop, you find a solution. The same mindset applies to drones. Soldiers need to perform basic repairs and keep the mission moving. That is not a metaphor. It's a maintenance standard. If a motor burns out in the field, a graduate of this course can resolder a replacement, restore the aircraft, and continue the mission without evacuating the platform to a maintenance depot. That capability matters enormously in this kind of remote, denied access environments where special forces operate. A drone that cannot be fixed on site is a drone that becomes a liability after its first malfunction. Sergeant First Class Giovanni Vasquez of the 4th Combat Aviation Brigade framed the strategic reality around the training. Adversaries already know what drones can do. Enemy forces and terrorist organizations are actively using this technology. The training is not about getting ahead of a future threat, it's about keeping pace with a present one. The advanced drone course is designed around 3 overlapping competencies that most military drone programs treat separately. The first is technical. Soldiers learn to solder, assemble, and program the platforms from a component level. They are not just learning to operate a finished product, they are learning how the finished product is built, which means they understand what breaks, why it breaks, and how to fix it. This is I think something that has been in the DIY drone circle and the FPV circle for years, right? You build it so you know how to fix it when it breaks. The second is operational. Live tactical range exercises integrate the platforms into reconnaissance and combat scenarios. The emphasis throughout is that drones are an additional asset, not a replacement for core soldier skills. The course reinforces that distinction deliberately. A soldier who thinks a drone substitutes for fieldcraft is more dangerous than one that has no drone at all. A third is adaptive. Troubleshooting malfunctions, replacing components, conducting basic modifications in the field. Special forces operate in environments where resupply is uncertain and mission timelines do not accommodate equipment failures. The course builds the problem-solving mindset alongside the technical skills. This is awesome. I think this is really cool that they are learning not only to utilize these pieces of equipment, but to troubleshoot them and fix them. I think that's really neat.
Absolutely. And this is great for the Army for doing this. This is an opportunity, or it highlights the notion of an opportunity for jobs for those of us who fly FPV, or if you're interested in a military career. This is being able to fly drones and fix them is not a bad skill to have upon entry.
Absolutely. All right, let me see if I can get this squared away real quick, and I'll stop sharing my screen. And then I will swap screens here. Let's see. Hold, please. So much going on. Share. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to... Let's see. OBS. Okay, hold on. Hold on, guys. Working on it. Okay. Bring the call back here. All right. Let me try something else real quick. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. Hopefully everybody can see this. And Dave, I'll hand this over to you, sir.
Sure. Can you scroll down to the second slide?
Yeah, give me 2 seconds. I think I can manage that.
That's it right there.
Okay.
Do it. Perfect. So we're not trying to be alarmists, but we want to let you know these are some things that we are working on actively and that have happened early this year. And we're encouraging our community to be compliant and to be aware. And so some notables are the FAA Order 2153C with Change 13. It's only 289 pages, but the last 2 pages are the ones that are really important to us. That's change 13, and it directs FSDOs and FAA personnel that they'll have mandatory penalties for violations of UAS infractions. There's an advisory circular 9157D. It communicates a bunch of these changes. So the whole, and this came out in June last year. This was, so the whole tone that Josh was talking about, and that the Pilot Institute presentation, that the FAA is less tolerant. This goes into significant detail as to what the FAA means by this. The 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, Section 1709, that eliminates DJI and Autel drones from being able to come into the country. And 8602 to 8606 was the Safe Skies Act that was jammed into the NDAA without any discussion of the legislation going to committee or going to the floor of the Senate. This is a standard tactic for senators and congressional representatives. To me, it's pretty despicable. So we get stuffed with a piece of legislation that we had no ability to advocate for. It just went in. So areas of emphasis, Josh mentioned this already, registration. Register all UAVs which are greater than 250 grams. If they're less than 250 grams, now this is all recreational. If you're flying Part 107, you have to register everything. Airspace authorization, get LANS approval. It's easy enough. We work with the Aloft company. Their air aware and air control is still free. Thank you, Aloft. I think they had over 75,000 authorizations last year alone. So it's the most used application. It's easy. It also shows NOTAMs and TFRs. Remote ID required for all UAS over 250 grams flying outside of a FRIA FAA.
Recognize identification area.
Recognize. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well done. And then so remember, and if you forget the rules, they're up on our homepage on fpvfc.org. Summary: you have to register. You have to put the registration on the UAV. You have to get airspace authorization if you're in controlled airspace. You have to have remote ID if you're above 250 grams. You have to fly below 400 feet above ground level. You have to fly visual line of sight. If you're flying FPV, you have to have a visual observer. We must follow CBO safety guidelines. That's such an easy one. Bring it up on your phone. You know, if a law enforcement officer is educated to ask for, this is part of the training, what CBO safety guidelines are you following? Just, you can just say, here it is. Here it is on my phone. I've got a PDF. It's the FPVFC safety guidelines. Yield right away to all manned aircraft. That's about it. So, and just remember, Safer Skies and the NDA authorizes law enforcement in state, local, and tribal territories to use counter UAS. So they're definitely stepping things up in terms of enforcement. And they also be careful, because there's a new catch-all, which is if we demonstrate a lack of care, judgment, or responsibility, that's a violation. So, that to me reminds me of my performance plans of do good, avoid evil, but it really is vague. And the FAA does like to use vague phrases. And this is one that they have in the regulations. And it's all over the 8602, 8606. So not too happy, but we want everyone aware, and we're encouraging compliance. And certainly of note, as we've talked about, the NOTAM 6/4375, also known as the ICE NOTAM. And Alex brought to our attention that the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press has brought suit against the FAA. I'm grateful that they have. It appears that they are working on both a First Amendment as well as difficulty to enforce. And that NOTAM stipulates that we cannot fly within 3,000 feet lateral, 1,000-foot vertical of any ICE, CBP, or FBI asset, and that includes vehicles. So this is a TFR that is not, we're not able to comply. And so we've been badgering the FAA about this. Vic Moss has had a number of articles about this. The FAA created an updated NOTAM that was going to replace the one that cannot be followed. We've been talking to them. It was supposed to come out about a month ago. That revised NOTAM was then stopped. We're pretty sure it was by DHS. And so now we have a TFR that is you cannot comply with. So if you were to try to comply with it, you'd have to just cease flight operations. So not a reasonable regulation. That's why I said we recommend compliance with all regulations with the exception of 6/4375 NOTAM. So that's Josh, when you get to it, I had one good news as well when we end up.
Okay, sounds good. So let me share mine and then we'll end on yours, and I think we'll go from there. So let me see if I can share this without breaking everything. All right, we'll go back to here and bring the call back here, and I'll see if I can switch screens real quick without breaking all the things. All right, so I thought this was really cool. Let me pull back so I can see the stream. All right, so severe weather preparedness. Researchers push boundaries with the first ever drone tornado intercept. This is something that I have, not so much tornadoes, but I have wanted to fly into a haboob here in Arizona for a long time. It just so happens that most of the time I'm at work when they happen. So, in Wichita, Kansas, tornadoes have been studied for decades, yet there is still so much we do not know about them. Now, the effort to understand these violent storms is becoming more high-tech than ever. Imagine building a drone from scratch, every component needed to fly, and then using it to study the atmosphere as it enters a tornado from miles away. The Otis project is doing exactly that, breaking new ground in the world of weather research. The observations of tornadoes by UAV systems project began as a conversation between brothers and friends who wondered, would it be possible to fly a drone into a tornado? I was like, I don't think that's possible, Nelson Tucker with the Otis project said. Your first thought is, there's no way a drone can survive the turbulence of a tornado. Eric Fox with the Otis Project said, tornadoes move at incredible speeds, Lewis Tucker with the Otis Project said. They have incredible air speed around. They have vertical wind speeds. They are moving on the ground. There's debris in the air. So many different weather phenomena at once. With the right team in the right place, and after several attempts, they set out to accomplish something that had never been done before. Storm chasing alone is difficult. Sometimes you need to spend weeks hunting tornadoes and never see one. That first tornado intercept in 2024 was an incredible roller coaster, Nelson said. It was also somewhat of a Hail Mary throw. It was the last shot of the time we went out there. But the crew turned the impossible into reality. We proved that it was possible, Lewis said. We knew in our heads it could be done. To be actually able to show people the video and say, this is what's possible. We got measurements that we could only dream about, and we can do this with using drone technology in a fun and positive way that's good for society. The data collected so far has already helped researchers who model tornadoes using previously limited information. Meteorology is the newest science there is out there. With so many unknowns, we hope to fill in the gaps. We hope from our project homes can be built better and we can better understand how they work and form and figure out where they go next, Lewis said. We are targeting it to be meaningful, Nelson said. We want it to actually have an impact. That is the whole point of Otis. It's not about getting a drone inside a tornado. It was cool that we did that, but the whole point, the reason why I invested so much of our own personal resources is to get that data to actually be able to help protect people in the future. Knowing the precise track of a tornado can improve our understanding of where it will hit and lead to better warnings. In its first year, the Otis project had only 1 or 2 drones and a single tornado intercept. Now the team plans to deploy more than 20 drones into tornadoes across the country. So I pulled up their page. This is the Otis Project. They have intercepted, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tornadoes, which is pretty cool, ranging from EF1 all the way up to an EF3. And they don't have a lot of pictures of their drones on their page, which is kind of what I was curious about. But they do have a YouTube channel where you can watch these intercepts. They're pretty interesting, the two that I watched here. And if I go to the Meet the Team, I thought this was really cool. This is Nelson Tucker. He's the president. So we got the two brothers, Lewis Tucker. And then we've got lead engineer Tanner Beard, and then Eric Fox. So these four guys make up. And they've had several press releases on NBC News, Forbes, another NBC, ABC. So several of these, they're interesting to watch. I watched a couple of these. And you can kind of see the drone right there. So pretty cool little gig they got going on here, and hopefully it helps a whole lot of people. So
it's so great. Yeah, privateers innovating in the industry, and for the betterment of everyone. This is so great, so cool.
And guys, there is a donate page on their website, so you can do a one-time donation or whatnot, and then I think they've got merch coming up, so we'll see what happens with the merch. I might have to get a t-shirt or something. So anyway, thought I'd share that. Let me stop sharing this, switch back to here, and switch back to here. Hopefully I haven't broken anything. I like not breaking things. All right, Dave, what you got, buddy?
I had just this past weekend I was able to attend the Northeast Whoop Championship. This is sponsored and completely put on by We Bleed FPV. So this is a FPV micro drone or Whoop drone race. It was about 40 or 50 pilots. It was an amazing event. The span, it was really, they welcomed everyone. The winning times were about 15 seconds for a lap. The slowest times were 3 times slower than that. Had I flown, that spread would have been much larger, but some phenomenal flying, great camaraderie, a good understanding of regulations. FPVFC was well known across many of the pilots there. I was grateful for that. And this is a community that they were flying. It was in Syracuse, New York, 37 degrees, and so everyone's inside, and that's so no FAA regs if you're flying inside, and that's a benefit. And everyone was really safety conscious, and so they're all shrouded micros or Whoop drones, and so a great event. And they plan to do it again next year. So my thanks to We Bleed FPV, Jeff, and the rest of the team. They had absolutely professional management and skills, and this is a multi-GP event as well. And so, Alex, your organization doing good work. So it was a blast to be there. Maybe someday I'll be fast enough to be the slow guys in the over 60 bracket. Great time, great bunch of folks, great dinner on Saturday night, really enjoyable.
That's awesome. Alex, you got anything to wrap us up, buddy?
I think the collegiate championship track was just released today on the multi-GP page. But outside of that, I don't really have anything else.
All right, cool. So all you folks competing in the collegiate class, I guess, go check out the course. That's awesome. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. Pardon my technical difficulties. They were plentiful.
You did great, and this is why we appreciate Dan so much.
Well, one of the many reasons, absolutely. So,
Here.
Guys, thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for your patience with me. And again, go out and have some fun. I know it's already almost close to 100 degrees in Arizona, so good times. And hopefully it's a little cooler in your part of the country and you can still get out and enjoy some drone flying. So with that, I will sign us off. We'll see you in another 2 weeks. Appreciate y'all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
See y'all.